Hey everybody, Sarah here. So today I'm going to be doing a Q&A where I answer questions that you guys have asked me either in live streams or on comments on my YouTube videos. Always feel free to ask me questions in the comments. I usually answer directly, but I also answer them in these Q&As for everybody, especially if it's a question that a lot of people seem to have. I have a website, sarahsnakeshop.com, where I have morph books and obviously snakes available, as well as some merch like t-shirts, masks, and other things. I also want to thank our members on this channel. You guys have made it possible for this channel to be everything that it is. So thank you so much to everyone on this list over here. You guys are amazing. If anybody else would like to be a member, it's currently just $2 a month. You guys get your own video every single week, as well as the ability to watch the live streams after they're over. Also, check out reptilinks.com if you are looking for an alternative food source for your snakes. It's whole ground prey in a collagen casing. They have a $100 money back guarantee if you are not satisfied. But one thing, if you're not necessarily looking to switch your snake's food, if you are a breeder or someone who has hatchling snakes and you're having trouble getting any of them to eat, Reptilinks also has a bunch of different scents that you can use. I use the Anole scent for some of my very picky baby snakes, but they have all different kinds. They have ASF, quail, gecko, a lot of different scents for different types of reptiles that might be attracted to those things. So if you're trying to maybe get a ball python to switch from ASF to regular mice, or if you're trying to get a baby corn snake to eat literally anything at all, these are also a great option and definitely worth the money. You can use my code SarahSnake27 at checkout to get any of these things. It will get you a discount, and it also gets me a little bit of money as well. Alright, I'm going to jump into the questions now. The first questions that I'm going to go over are ones that were in the live video that I did last Friday. On the third Friday of every month, I'm going to be doing a live stream where you guys can ask me whatever questions that I can answer live, and then some of those questions will also be going into a video on the final Friday of every single month. So these are the questions that were in my previous live stream. The first one is, how far out do you plan your content? And the honest answer is it kind of depends on the content. I'm trying to do more planning now than I did over the last few months. Over the holidays and pretty much ever since like November till the end of the year last year, I just didn't have this schedule in my life to be able to plan that much, but now I'm planning out things a lot better. The book reviews are usually planned like 2 to 3 months in advance. The redos of old morph deep dives are also planned out a couple months in advance. Any new morph deep dives are usually more sort of off the cuff, whatever is requested of me or whatever people are talking about the most at that time. Of course, the Q&As, I plan doing a Q&A every single month, but I never really know what questions I'm going to be answering until the day of recording, which today happens to be literally the day before this video is going out. What videos am I excited to put out this year is the next question, and of course I'm always excited to put out hatching videos because that's a very exciting video for everybody. But pretty much like I'm really excited to, I want to be done with all of the redo morph deep dives that I had done in the past before I had editing software, so that will be a huge burden lifted off of me when I finally get those all redone with like actual photos and you know, a little bit more professionally. How do I keep records or labels for snakes? So that's kind of two different questions, but I will start with the label answer, and I'm going to give an example of a couple labels over here. So if I buy a snake from someone and I don't really have any like lineage information about that snake, or just maybe basic lineage information, so normally I put the name at the top and then the year that they hatched, and then I will often put the visual morph, then the hets underneath, and then possible hets underneath that. If the snake is one that I hatched here, that means it also has a number associated with it. So it has a clutch number as well as a baby number within that clutch, and that will also go up like around the, you know, year it was born. If it's 2022-82, then I already know it was a 2022 baby, so I don't really have to put that. Instead of just putting the year 2022, I'll just put the clutch number instead. And of course, the gender will also usually go up next to the name as well. As far as keeping records, it really depends on the record. But each snake has its own folder in my computer where there's a Word file and photos all the way from baby to adulthood, how the colors developed over time, and any mutations that it might be het for. So if I say, for example, the ghost blood red Motleys that I purchased as 2 females, one ended up being female, one ended up being male, and so I had to change that. And of course I found out that they were not ghosts at all, nor were they blood reds, but they were really cool Anery Motleys, and they were both het stripes, so they're Motley stripes, I guess you could say, and they are both het amel as well. And so I have a Word file in each of those folders with the photos of everything and proof of that everything is the way that I say it is. So I'll also put breeding information in that Word file, so anytime that a snake has bred to another snake, I will put that down and what the offspring were in that folder. So as far as that record keeping goes, it's all on my computer. The feeding records for baby snakes, I have a physical folder where I just write down the date and which babies ate and what they ate every time that I feed clutches. I will put a link down in the description below for a template feeding document for any breeder out there who is kind of looking for a way to keep track of these things. You can just download it and print it off, and I usually just write the clutch number at the top, what the parents were, and I'll sometimes write down like what each baby is. So maybe baby number 1 is an Anery, baby number 2 is a normal, and I'll just sort of keep all that information in there. But yeah, I'll put that down below so you guys can have that resource if you want it. The most complicated question on this list is how to produce diamond corn snakes. This is not to be confused with the black diamond, which is a new mutation. I'm not going to get into that, but I did make a video on it if you'd like to go see that. I will link it up in the corner somewhere. Diamond, for those of you who don't know, is the combination of lava and charcoal. They are both simple recessive gene mutations, and when you're breeding them to anything else, it works similarly to every other simple recessive gene mutation. However, it is believed that they are sex linked. That essentially means it's very difficult to combine charcoal and lava together. It could be that they're very close in the DNA in some way, and so it's hard to sort of separate them from each other and then actually combine them in a visual form. There's only about a 2% chance of it happening, and essentially you just have to try until it does happen. But once you do get a diamond, you can then reproduce diamonds with other diamonds. You just kind of have to, once that 2% happens, then you can actually take it and breed it to whatever, and from then on, the lineage from that visual diamond should more easily be able to produce more diamonds. I know that doesn't really make sense, but I do plan on doing a whole video on diamond pretty soon. That is one of the redos that I have planned. Now I'm going to move on to the questions that you guys have asked me in the comments. The first one that I have is, hey Sarah, I bought my buddy Phil from you in October. He was born in July, I believe. He's been feeding great, but my question is, do I eventually feed him one small pinky every 5 to 7 days until he gets a year old or so? His neck is kind of skinny. Thanks. So at this point, the snake being born in July is at least 6 months old, and all of the siblings from that clutch are all on fuzzy mice. So if you are getting to a point where a pinky is obviously too small for your snake, definitely go ahead and move them up a size of food. I have found that for most snakes, it's better to move them up a size of food than to try to feed them 2 at a time. Or if they're a little too small still for a larger food source, then yes, move them to more frequent feedings until they are ready for fuzzies. Any corn snake that is small enough for pinkies could very easily be fed every like 5 days. Sometimes even I would do twice a week for like little babies. And then once they're big enough for fuzzies, you can move it down to that once a week. The next question is there any idea why boiling pinkies works for picky feeding snakes? Does it alter the scent? I've always heard about this, but never needed to try it. So I did a video on boiling pinky mice for picky feeding snakes last week, and the answer is I don't exactly know why it works. I just know that it kind of does. It could be altering scent. It could be just making it smell more because it's cooked. It could be because you're washing some smell off. There's a lot of different things that it could be. A lot of animals respond to cooked food in a different way than they respond to raw food. There are still some things that I don't even know, and I'm willing to admit that this is one of those things that I just don't really know why it works. I just know that it works. The next question is, I was wondering if my Motley stripe female can have Motley babies and how to get them without a Motley father. And there's a lot more to this question, but that's sort of the like basic of it. Is there a way to get a Motley without a Motley father? Kind of, yes. You could also go with a het Motley, but a Motley stripe is probably not going to produce a Motley unless there is an actual Motley that it's being bred to that is not carrying stripe. Hey, Sarah in editing. I wanted to mention in this segment that I did a whole video on Motley and stripe and how all that works together because I wasn't exactly accurate. It's really hard to take the most complicated morph relationship and put it into a tiny version of this video, but I'm going to right here put a bunch of Punnett squares that sort of show how Motley and stripe work so that you can get an idea kind of what you can expect out of all of those things. The next question is there a way to tell an Anery masque from a hypo Anery masque or a ghost masque? I understand that masks can have a hypo-like effect sometimes. Yes, masks can have a hypo-like effect, and the best way to tell, honestly, is if you have them as a baby, or if you have the eye for it. The hypo mutation does cause a bit more of a translucency to the skin that you don't really get with a masque. And so if you kind of know what to look for, a ghost is generally going to have a bit more of a translucent look to it. I can go over that hierarchy of translucency in another video, but just to answer your question, yes, there is a way to tell. Also, like I said, baby photos really help because a baby ghost is going to look like a ghost and a baby Anery is going to look like an Anery whether it has masque or not. Someone asked, what are all the different health issues for different morphs? It was touched on in my lavender video that there was a time when lavenders tended to have spinal kinks and other deformities a lot more common than other mutations. I will probably do a whole separate video on this, but the reason I've hesitated to do that is because I don't want anyone to not purchase a certain morph because of those things, because the majority of those issues have been bred out of the hobby over time. Obviously, we know about palmetto with the bug eye problem. I made a video on that. That's not going to ever go away. There are different morphs that have different issues, but I'm not going to probably emphasize those because either they are obvious or they are not something you have to worry about, really, like the lavender thing. The next question boils down to, would a Hypo Cinder be a ghost morph? And technically, no. We have talked about Cinder in a previous video. I will also link it above. So a ghost morph, in my opinion, is any anerythristic type combined with any hypomelanistic type. The main ghost mutation is, of course, anerythristic type A with hypo type A, but you can mix anerythristic type B, which is charcoal, with hypo type A, or you could mix it with lava, which is also hypo type. We talked about diamond earlier. That is technically a ghost type. There's also ice, which is lava and anerythristic type A. So there are a lot of different like combinations that are like technically a ghost morph, but we don't call them all ghosts because that would be really confusing. They originally called ice the ice ghost, and that has just been reduced to ice because we don't want to confuse ghost with ice just by tacking on a word that is not really necessary. But if we're talking about ghost morphs being anerythristic plus hypomelanistic, technically Cinder is not a anerythristic mutation, and we discussed this, like I said, in my other Cinder video. It does retain some red, so a Hypo Cinder is going to very likely have much more bright pink saddles or even maybe like purple saddles. They will retain some of that actual red. Is there a way to tell the difference between a Hypo Shatter and a regular Shatter? So Hypo Shatter is going to be the Cinder, Hypo, and Sunkissed mutations together, and then a regular Shatter is just going to be the Cinder and Sunkissed. The difference is definitely going to be that the Hypo Shatters will be much lighter in color, and again, I talked about that color transparency. If you have the eye for it, you'll be able to see that the hypos will have more color transparency than the non-hypos. Is there an easy way to tell the difference between Ultramel Anery and Ultramel Ghost? This is very similar, but it's also more complicated. Ultramel does remove more color than just hypo type A. However, hypotype A also removes certain other things as well. So if you have an Ultramel Anery and an Ultramel Ghost coming out of the same clutch, this is not going to be 100%, but the Ultramel Ghosts will definitely have thinner or no borders potentially, whereas an Ultramel Anery is just going to have regular borders. Hypomelanistic type A does tend to reduce the thickness of the borders. You almost never see a hypotype A Okati because of this. So if you have the ability to compare siblings, the lighter colored ones are more likely to have the hypomelanistic A mutation, but there's also a complexity with Ultramel in general that they are highly variable. They can vary from being very dark to very light and everything in between just in one clutch, and part of that could potentially be a hybrid background in the Ultra mutation. Hybrids, as we know, don't follow exactly the same rules as purebreds. To answer your question, I guess no, there really is no easy way other than test breeding. That's going to probably be the easiest definite way to tell, but comparing siblings is kind of the next easiest way to tell. Next question is, did the 3 yellow looking babies that I hatched out last year end up being Goldens? And the answer is, I don't know. I still have 2 of the 3. One of those 3 was definitely a caramel. I could tell for sure. I've hatched many caramels. It was definitely just a regular old caramel. The other 2, I'm not really sure yet what they are. I am keeping them. They're a 1.1 pair, which means 1 male, 1 female. I have sent photos of them to Joe Pierce, who has hatched the most Goldens of anybody, and he has never really answered on what he thinks those might be. It's kind of just raise them up and see later, and so I don't really know if they are or not, but I am keeping them, and they'll be a year old this year, so hopefully next year the male will actually be able to breed, and we'll see what we can get. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I will be doing a Q&A every single month on the last Friday of the month, so your question will be, one, directly answered by me, but also then put in a video later on. And remember, if you have a question, probably other people also have the same question and they're just too afraid to ask. So if nobody ever asks it, we don't ever get the question answered. It's better to ask, and if I don't know the answer, I can do some research and then still answer it for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in a new video soon.